Good afternoon. Welcome to Department of Medicine Grand Rounds here at UCSF. Today, we're going to be hearing from Lekshmi Santhosh, and the title is Best Practices for Mentorship and People Development at UCSF and Beyond in 2025. The topic chosen because Lekshmi, for the past year or so, has been our inaugural Department of Medicine Associate Chair for People Development and Mentorship, a role we didn't have before, but have recognized that in some ways the most important thing we do is try to bring spectacular people here and allow them to achieve their dreams. And that is a thing that requires thought and strategy and resources and all of that. And there's really no better person who could be in charge of doing that than Lekshmi. So thrilled that she's taken that role for us in support of all of the people in the Department of Medicine. I think everybody knows Lekshmi, but I'll go through the bio quickly. She's Associate Professor in Pulmonary and Critical Care Medicine. She also has an appointment in our Division of Hospital Medicine. She received her MD from Harvard, and then we brought her out here for residency, chief residency, Pulmonary and Critical Care Fellowship, and has stayed on our faculty and has demonstrated herself to be really a unique talent in clinical medicine, education, research, and leadership. During her fellowship, she received a master's in education from Berkeley. She attends on pretty much every service that we have, including the medicine wards, the medical ICU, and in outpatient pulmonary clinic. She also, during COVID, ran to the fire and launched what is a version of our long COVID clinic called the Optimal Clinic. In terms of other leadership roles, she's Associate Program Director for the Internal Medicine Residency Program. She has published extensively on issues related to mentorship, curriculum, medical errors, diagnostic reasoning. She actually is one of the inaugural National Academy of Medicine Scholars in Diagnostic Excellence and is chair-elect for the American Thoracic Society Section on Medical Education. She's also recently been awarded the Gold-Headed Cane Endowed Education Chair in Internal Medicine. Believe it or not, I have edited down some of her accomplishments, otherwise she wouldn't be able to get her talk in. So let me have Lekshmi come up and look forward to hearing your comments.
Thanks so much, Bob, for the very kind introduction. And thanks everyone for taking time out of your busy schedules to hear about mentorship and best practices today. So we're going to talk about mentorship best practices, challenges, looking ahead to the future. What are we doing here at UCSF? What can we learn from each other and what can we learn from others in this unique moment in time? Don't have any disclosures. For those of you learning objective-oriented folks, these are the learning objectives that I hope we'll accomplish by the end of our time together. And I'll start with the caveat that this is not your typical talk on mentorship. What we're not going to do, we're not going to define mentor and mentorship and talk about the history of the word mentor and things like that. I think we've heard many of those concepts before. And we're not going to talk about, the history of mentorship in medical education, the journey that it's made throughout the years. What does that word mean to you? But I will ask each of you in the audience today to take a moment, whether you're on Zoom or in person, and close your eyes. Not if you're driving, though. Please no. If you're driving, keep your eyes open. But for those of you in the room and on Zoom, close your eyes and really take a moment to picture all the different mentors in your life who have brought you to this point. Whether that's your middle school biology teacher, as it is for me, a high school English professor, amazing mentors in college, medical school, residency, faculty life. And for me, I have the good fortune to see many of my mentors in the audience right now. And when you picture that amalgamation of faces cheering you on, that is why we do this. You all are here in academic medicine listening because of those long history of mentors who supported you, who told you you could do this, who cheered you on, who helped you overcome periods of difficulty and challenges. And it's our obligation, each and every one of us, to sort of pass that forward to the next generation, and how to do that systematically, at scale, with evidence-based, and of course, with that human connection. So sharing a little bit of the roadmap today, I'm going to tell you what I've learned about mentorship on the road, as I call it, talking to people again at UCSF and outside of UCSF. We'll, of course, dive into some lessons from the literature on this topic. I'll share some pilots and interventions that we have planned at UCSF for 2025 and beyond. And I will close with some kind of provocative, thought-provoking, big picture reflections and challenges for the field. And of course, we'll have plenty of time for questions, okay? So Bob shared that I have this new role and title, and many people come and ask me, so what exactly do you do here? For any Office Space fans, I see you, I see you. And Bob gave me a very ambitious job description that is barely encompassed in this slide here, saying, design, implement, oversee mentorship programs for trainees, faculty, fellows, residents alike, do needs assessment, collect data, collaborate with others, drive initiatives at the local and national level. And how exactly could I begin to make a dent in that aspirational job description? So the first thing that I wanted to do was to, of course, do a listening tour, because we do a lot of things well at UCSF when it comes to mentorship, and I'll share about that. I did look at data and feedback and did a lot of listening to faculty, fellows, residents, and division chiefs and other leaders about what do people need and what are the gaps that I see systemically. And I am still approaching this with this kind of lifelong learning approach, learning from you all, and my door is always open. So if you want to chat more about this topic, come find me. You know where to find me. I'm at Parnassus. Email me. Let's chat. So this is a slide that I'll show a couple of times, which is, this is what our existing landscape of mentorship looks like at UCSF. And to orient you, on the far radiology left, there's the residency and residency structure. And the residency has a lot of overlapping mentorship structures. It's actually kind of a role model of what you would describe in the literature as matrix mentorship. Residents, when they enter, they're randomly assigned to a very cool RAD advisor, residency and development advisor. They're also assigned to an APD, an associate program director, who has a little flock called a firm. And so there are longitudinal and overlapping structures that are not necessarily career-based, but can be, that you're assigned to right when you match here. In addition to that, there's a lot of affinity groups. We have, of course, the RDC, Residency Diversity Committee, Women in Leadership Development, and other affinity groups. There's a network of PDs and APDs. And of course, residents have their individual research and project mentors. I think that when we talk about mentorship, we also have to talk about the other aspects of the word development. Bob called it people development. And so supporting people who are struggling, people who need extra support or extra remediation is also an important part of how we think of our mentorship landscape. And again, the residency has built up an impressive structure for people who need extra support or even remediation. There's, of course, the formal CCC, Clinical Competency Committee, but there's also special DOM and GME-wide coaching initiatives, which is really impressive for people who need a little bit of extra one-on-one support. There are our chief residents who do a lot of observations on rounds, on the wards. There's also near-peer mentorship with people who take an HPE, Health Professions Education elective. And then on the fellowships side, you see a lot of these structures are mirrored, perhaps a little slightly less robust, but remember, most of our fellows are also on T32 training grants or have their own individual F32 grants. And so there's an overlapping structure too of their kind of pre-K or T32 mentorship structures. A lot of our fellowships require that our residents, our fellows, pardon me, do individual development plans or career development plans. A lot of our fellowships require that you take the time to not just have one residency, one fellowship mentor, research mentor, but you have a mentorship committee. And again, that's what that recognition that just like our PhD scientists have, you really need a village, you really need a network of support, not just your scientific mentor. And in fact, you kind of need a structure where there's checks and balances on your scientific mentor to make sure that, hey, what if you're getting bad advice? Like, don't apply for a job, just stay in assistant adjunct land forever. Different advice is going to resonate differently. And so you have to have multiple streams of mentorship and advice coming in. So our fellowships also do that well. And then on the faculty side, the physician scientists and the clinician educators have different structures as well. So again, if some of these acronyms are new to you, but you're in these tracks, I encourage you to look up those websites, come and talk to me or anyone else who can orient you. So on the physician scientist side, of course, everyone has their division chiefs as mentors. There's programs like the PSCDP, Physician Scientist Career Development Program, that has structured support networks. That is not encompassing of every physician scientist faculty member, of course. It is kind of a limited resource. There's the WPSS, Women Physician Scientist Program. And I see some leaders like Dr. Cotes of the WPSS in our audience. It is an amazing program that provides a lot of mentorship to women physician scientists across the continuum. So from the MD PhD student to the fellow, to the postdoc, to the faculty member, and it kind of cross hybridizes mentorship curriculum, networking, community building, advice, strategy all together. It's a very powerful group. Similarly, the K Scholars Program is another very powerful group and a great resource. And there's programs like ImmunoXX, Arches, et cetera. In addition to research mentors, if you're on a K, you should be having a career development committee or plan. We'll talk about, again, how that gets operationalized. For clinician educators, Dr. Schwartz, Dr. Anna Chang, Dr. Stephanie Renke, Dr. Vanessa Thompson have also built out this DOM process program, which is a phenomenal network for clinician educators to look at mentorship on curriculum development. There's a mentor training program. There's community building resources. There's a lot of resources. So again, if you identify as that. And then one of the gaps that we found is that clinicians, people who identify as, hey, I'm an HS clinical faculty, I'm predominantly at Mount Zion, where do I fit in? And so one of the places that we found is that the clinician educator faculty who may not attend process events also need dedicated mentorship curriculum, need to be brought into the fold, need to be recognized too. I showed this slide as an example of that matrix mentorship approach that our residency does well. This is Dr. Dan Wheeler, the residency APD of mentorship and advising, who, along with Dr. Rebecca Berman and our other program directors, have made a fabulous matrix mentorship infrastructure. So that's a kind of a bright spot, a best practice of where we do things well. We wanted to learn, I took this role in October, and Bob said to me, how about in January at the Department of Medicine Leadership Retreat, we should focus it on mentorship. You got 2 months, go. And so we set aside to planning this Department of Medicine Leadership Retreat for division chiefs and leaders focused on mentorship. And what we did was we looked at bright spots and areas for improvement across the Department of Medicine. And we invited an outside speaker as well, Dr. Vineet Chopra, the chair at Colorado. He has launched an exciting new initiative called Launch Teams, which I'll share a little bit about. And this retreat was on the last Friday of the last administration. Monday hit, and the rest is history, right? But I feel determined that mentorship is really important now more than ever in these uncertain times. And we all have a lot of capacity to change the kind of trajectories of our trainees, each other, ourselves, our institutions, once we stand stronger together and work together to improve mentorship and sustain and retain our amazing people here. So what do they do at Colorado that we learned about from Dr. Chopra? They have this concept called launch teams. And what that looks like is that for new faculty who enter the Department of Medicine, they say, hey, let's kind of take a little bit of that black box of mentorship out. Let's demystify it. Let's break it down. Let's actually build an actual functioning mentorship network with multiple people who have different domains of expertise, people both within and outside your division. And again, as we know, some people who have committees that are written in for their K grant, they don't actually meet as planned, or they may not provide that advice as planned, or it ends up being sort of like a lab meeting where they're focused really predominantly on the research project, rather than that whole, where's your career going? What's your vision? What's your why? What's your funding sources? Are you doing too much clinical? Are you doing too much of this or that? How can you calibrate? So that's what Colorado does. And I worked with the team there to look extensively to, again, look under the hood to say, what are the components? What can we build? What is UCSF already doing that they're not doing? What can we add to this? What structure feels good that's helpful and supportive, but not infantilizing? Because again, we're all adult learners. Our trainees and faculty are highly accomplished people who know a lot and who've done a lot of this themselves. So how do we build something like that? And I looked at other gaps too that we've seen. I think some gaps to call out. Again, now more than ever, I'm worried, and we're all worried about the fellow to faculty, the jump from fellow to faculty. When people are in the adjunct assistant professor stage or in that kind of donut hole, they often lack structured mentorship. People often, once they're post-ACGME years of fellowship, the fellowship PD may be less involved, and the division chief may not be as involved either. So I think we need to make sure that folks who are post-ACGME, who are in the early years of their career, get mentorship in a very hands-on structured way in a critical period of time where they could be at risk of leaving the scientific and academic pipeline. I already shared about clinicians, kind of big C, little e. People who may say, that label, clinician educator, doesn't really resonate with me. How can we engage and give faculty development and community and support to people who identify as pure clinicians or big C, little e? I've already spoken about women physician scientists and folks who are underrepresented in medicine. Our colleagues who are women physician scientists or colleagues who are underrepresented in medicine face multiple additional barriers to career development and advancement. And again, it's our obligation, it's our duty to really invest in folks and protect our future of our scientific pipeline, our academic pipeline, without further exacerbating the minority tax. Early career faculty in general, especially at this point in time, now more than ever, are worrying about how do we make this work? How do I make this whole academic career thing work in this environment? In the meantime, mentors, senior superstar mentors, like some of you in the audience, may feel like, hey, I'm doing all this mentorship, but I don't feel valued. No one sees me. I feel like I'm doing it all for free on top of all of my other academic jobs. There's unique funding challenges at both the general and the VA that further exacerbate some of these phenomena. And people are still seeking mentorship around career transitions. So we talked about fellow to faculty transition or resident to faculty transition, but even assistant to associate, associate to full professor to what comes next. A lot of chiefs and leaders have said that they also are seeking guidance for, again, that other side of the coin of people development. What do you do when a faculty member is struggling and needs some extra support? We saw the robust residency infrastructure for extra support, but what do you do if a faculty member is having trouble with completing their notes, with showing up to work on time, with juggling all these responsibilities? A lot of people also expressed to me that they're still worried about advancement and promotion, again, now more than ever. And despite the numerous emails from Drs. Brian Aldridge or Dr. Christina Mangurian saying, hey, it's still holistic review, people don't necessarily feel that experientially and need a lot of guidance and reassurance about how do we prepare our packets in this time. Folks who are PhD scientist faculty and postdocs also face unique challenges, again, now more than ever. And again, I hope that we have time at the end, I know we will, to add your thoughts of what other gaps do we see. So I'm not going to leave you just with gaps, but how are we going to solve this? Because again, I'm an action-oriented person. I'm a doer. I don't want to just identify problems, but I want to say, what can we do about it? So in all these interviews, it was more than 100 interviews that I did. I assembled every single suggestion that people took for a blue skies approach. How would you improve this? And put it into a pick chart. What's possible? Can we implement? What's a challenge? What is a bad idea that we should just kill? Put that pick chart into, of course, a color-coded spreadsheet with short, medium, and long-term goals, just giving you all a window into my crazy, and then kind of pulled back again to say, what are some common themes that people are asking for? First things first, of course, mentors and mentees alike are asking for more funding. We heard that loud and clear. Sadly, I don't have a magical spigot to address that, but I'm going to share other things that we can do in the interim while we wait for this funding environment to improve. A lot of people wanted more education to say, hey, I think I'm a pretty good mentor, I think I'm a pretty good mentee, but what can we do? Or, hey, some of our faculty are new to mentoring. How can I make sure that they're set up for success? People wanted more information about advancement. People wanted opportunities to build community with each other. People wanted to publicize the good work that they're doing. They wanted better tools to match mentors and mentees. They wanted recognition for their work, and they wanted more coaching. So with that was kind of my landscape needs assessment of what are the problems and how can we begin to solve them. before kind of willy-nilly saying, let's solve these, I have all these great ideas, I said, like any good education scholar or scholar of any point said, I said, let's return to the literature. Let's see what the best practices are in the literature. Let's talk to people at other institutions. So next, let's return briefly to the literature to talk about what does the literature say about how to address these issues. We're lucky at UCSF, we have one of the experts on mentorship here, Dr. Mitch Feldman, who is the Associate Vice Provost of Faculty Mentoring at UCSF and who wrote this Faculty Mentoring Toolkit. There's a ton of great information in there, and I'll share in a couple of slides how I've condensed that into nifty one-pagers for you all. There's also great national resources out there. So I mentioned Dr. Vineet Chopra, who's the chair at Colorado, who's a mentorship research expert. He's written really practical, brief, kind of lay audience Harvard Business Review articles that help kind of demystify a couple of things on how to be a better mentor, mentee, avoiding conflict, making a team effort. And he even wrote a book about this topic. The National Academy of Medicine also has a wealth of resources. They actually have this whole mentorship toolkit, and they have all these recommendations of best practices, which I'm going to incorporate into our programming. And if you click on any of these links, it actually leads to more evidence-based best practices on mentorship. And remember, I started the talk saying I'm not going to define mentorship. Well, for those of you sticklers in the audience being like, what exactly are we talking about? Let's get a good definition. I'll tell you the definition by NAM, which was a really nice definition that I really like. And they say, mentorship is a professional working alliance in which individuals work together over time, that's a longitudinal aspect, to support personal and professional growth, development, and success of relational partners through both career and psychosocial support. Wow, that's a lofty definition. And a lot of you might be thinking, my mentor is not like that, or I'm not like that to all my mentees. And I think, again, one theme that I'm going to harp on throughout this talk is that mentorship is a team effort. We need matrix mentorship. We need to do this collectively. It's kind of an unrealistic and outdated expectation that one person can fulfill all of this for every person. And so you need to kind of expand your toolkit and people. And then, some of you want to know the definition. Some of you also want to say, hey, what's the ROI on mentorship? I like the visualizing my mentors, but why even bother? And so there are many studies like this one. This is a study out of UCSD that was published in Academic Medicine that says that the cost saving is really related to faculty attrition or faculty leaving academia. And they found that if you just look at recruitment costs alone, you save about $1 million. And the ROI in this specific program was 49%, or a return on investment of $1.49 for every dollar spent. And there's study after study like this saying investing in mentorship in academic medicine specifically helps with faculty retention. And that's a theme that I saw when I looked at all of our surveys, whether it's Net Promoter Score. I read every single comment, thanks to Dr. Murad's nifty dashboard where I could look into that. I read every single comment in the Sea Change surveys that were done before COVID, talking about our culture at UCSF. I read every single comment. And in the comments, that's loud and clear. When people lacked mentorship, people felt alienated or disconnected from the larger mission, from UCSF, from academic and medicine. Multiple people said in these comments, the reason I'm here is because of my mentorship team. So mentorship is absolutely a driver of retention and fulfillment and well-being. We'll return to that concept too. I've used this term a couple of times, matrix mentorship, and this is another key concept from the literature. One of the best papers about this topic was from actually Dr. Carrie Byington, who is a senior leader at the UC-wide level. And when she was at Utah, before she ran all of the UCs, she started a faculty mentorship model focused on physician scientist mentorship, looking specifically at the K to R faculty transition. And she advocated for committees, again, beyond just the typical scientific committees, but said, hey, the mentee, that faculty member whose early career has to be in the center of it all, the self. There should be a scientific expert mentor. There should be a peer mentor. There should be a senior mentor who has a big picture view. And there should be a staff mentor as well. And one of the other themes that came out of our Department of Medicine leadership retreat is that we're really lucky at UCSF. We have a wealth of expertise in our staff colleagues. And our staff partners want to engage in more mentorship of faculty, and because they can often help you achieve your goals and say, how do you exactly do that? How are my finances? I've talked to many early career faculty who don't know how to read their balance sheet. It's very confusing. And so it's hard for them to make decisions about, should I up titrate or down titrate my clinical time? How does that interface with my research finances, et cetera? So our staff colleagues actually have a lot of wisdom and expertise to impart. This concept of matrix mentorship resonated with me as well, because one of my mentors, Dr. Urmimala Sarkar, who is our associate chair of faculty experience, years ago had said, you shouldn't have one mentor, you should have a personal board of directors. And years ago, we created this activity called Mapping Your Mentorship Network. Some of you in the audience may have done it with me, where Dr. Sarkar and I actually walk you through who are your mentors in different phases of your life who fill those different niches, and how can they help you? And where is my tree not so filled out? Where do I need to actually seek out a staff mentor, or seek out a sponsor, or seek out a near peer, or seek out a person who is a beast when it comes to criticism of your writing in a good way? The red pen. Which of your colleagues has that good red pen? I mentioned Dr. Feldman's expertise in research on this, and another concept that's huge in the mentorship literature is that of sponsorship. And that's saying, hey, I was just at the American Thoracic Society meeting, introducing some of our fellows and our residents to other luminaries in the field, recommending them for talks for next year, things like that. That's sponsorship, elevating somebody who expanding their network, introducing them. And so Dr. Mitch Feldman has worked a lot with Dr. Mia Williams to help create a sponsorship toolkit for division chiefs to say, hey, are you systematically thinking about everyone in your faculty? Are you nominating your faculty for awards? Are you encouraging them to apply for, big awards, big grants, big leadership roles, journal editors, things like that? And another one of my mentors, Dr. James Frank, on the fellowship side, when I was the fellowship associate program director for 7 years, Dr. Frank actually adopted the UCSF Bridges Med School coaching model and adapted it towards fellows, which is really unique. Because the difference between mentorship and coaching, this is a slide adapted from him, is that coaching is really skill-based. So in the pulmonary fellowship, each fellow has a coach that's supposed to be non-evaluative, that's supposed to actually hone your skills. So you talk to them and say, hey, I want to get better at procedures. I want to get better at scientific writing. I want to get better at family meetings. And they help walk you through that. They give you coaching and support just like they do in sports. It's kind of time limited. It's only for helping you grow. And so adding coaching to a traditional mentorship model actually can be really helpful, especially when you're looking at targeting specific skills. The other nice thing about the coaching program is that it extends beyond the classic ACGME years only. So when we first started, the coaching was just for the first 3 years of fellowship. But now the coaches actually continue to follow people even in the post-ACGME years, because we found that, again, people fell into that little donut hole of mentorship. So now I'm going to synthesize everything that we've learned from our internal data, from external data, and from the literature to share a little bit about pilots and mini interventions that I want to do or have started doing in 2025 and beyond, especially in this environment where, remember, problem number one was people wanted more funding. We don't have massive new funding coming in at the federal level or local level. So how can we tackle all of these themes with kind of low cost yet effective, high quality interventions for mentorship? And so this is kind of the take home slide of the next couple of slides of interventions that I'm going to talk about. So you'll see this once, you'll see it again. Mini intervention number one is publicity, which is, first of all, get credit for what people are doing. So I did all these interviews with division chiefs, division leaders, division managers, and a lot of times people's websites didn't reflect the actual amazing mentorship infrastructures they had created. And so one thing that we did was we actually did these structured interviews, used AI to create little friendly summaries that can be posted on the website. Simple thing, low-hanging fruit, actually disseminate what you are actually doing at the divisional level, because a lot of the faculty in the division said, hey, I didn't even know we had access to that program, or I didn't even know there was a big SIB, little SIB program in palliative care. Speaking of best practices, this is another thing that I wanted to spend a little bit of time on in our talk today is what are the best practices for mentors, mentees, and division chiefs? Remember that amazing faculty handbook by Dr. Mitch Feldman? I kind of tried to synthesize that for, perhaps an attention span deficit millennial learner. And so these are now into helpful one-pagers. There's helpful one-pagers for mentors, mentees, and for building mentorship programs for leaders. So walking through those, these will all be posted on our website, which is coming soon, estimated June 2025. We are also doing a lot of coaching and dissemination of these ideas everywhere we can. We just had the intern leadership launch, for example, for the residents. And we said, these are best practices for being a good mentee from a resident level, because that will help all of us if we have a shared mental model, whether you're a mentor or a mentee. Similarly, there's best practices for mentors that we're going to go over, and there's best practices for supporting mentorship in the division. These best practices actually use local examples so that you can say, hey, it's not abstract. It's like, for example, in the ID division, Dr. Engel's division, she has a fantastic mentorship facilitator, Dr. Jen Babbitt, who does mentor-mentee pairings and says, hey, we will actually help support you to have a cup of coffee or a lunch with your mentee for an informal mentoring conversation. That's a great best practice that actually a lot of other divisions could employ. Another example is in DGIM, Dr. Radhika Ramanan. She created sort of a mentor-mentee best practices panel discussion with real dyads, mentor-mentee dyads in DGIM. So every single division is doing really cool stuff, and I want to highlight that. So some best practices from the literature, and again, from you all, are as follows. This goes for the mentor and the mentee alike. Once again, people need a network. You can't put all your eggs in one mentorship basket. Expand your network. If you're a mentor, encourage your mentee to have multiple mentors in a strategic, systematic way. If you're a mentee, think about that mentorship map. Who can I add to my network of mentors? View feedback as a growth opportunity. That's bi-directional, right? So if you're a mentee getting feedback, you should know that this is not a criticism of your personality. This is actually feedback to help you grow. And similarly, if you're the mentor, taking that criticism and taking that feedback in a bi-directional way, not seeing it as criticism, but seeing it as a growth opportunity. Clear goals and expectations is one of the key things that we can do on both sides of the mentor-mentee relationship to avoid misunderstandings, miscommunication. As Dr. Bimla Schwartz says, don't be a tormentor. It's a great quote. And so avoid those mentorship malpractices and communicate. And part of it is just communication about best practices, like, hey, how often do you want to meet? What communication modality works best for you? Is it email? Is it texting? Is it a Slack channel that you have? Because sometimes when those preferences don't align, you're like, oh, this person is annoying me. But then you realize, oh, actually, I haven't set my expectations clearly enough. Be active and proactive in meetings. So whether you're a mentee, think about how your mentor might be juggling different things just like you are. And so be active and proactive, come with an agenda, lead up. And similarly, if you're the mentor, make sure that you have a couple of agenda items in mind. Say, I want to check in with my mentee about this, this, and this, not just like, how's it going? How about your long weekend? So be active and proactive. Clarifying your values with structured tools like individual development plans is key. Dr. Dan Wheeler, like I mentioned, built out a mini IDP for the residents that's in an online portal. Many of our fellowship programs, again, require that you fill out a structured IDP. When you go through that tool as a faculty member too, you're like, ooh, this is helpful. I should keep doing this as a faculty member because it can help you have that little self-audit, that values audit of how am I doing, how am I spending my time? A lot of this is embedded in your end of the year review meeting with your chiefs in the structured DOM portal. So again, take that time really seriously as a self-reflective time as you're preparing that end of year conversation with your division chief to do that. And if you want to go further with structured IDP, we have lots of tools available. And again, don't forget peer mentors. In this time where there's a lot of uncertainty and chaos, peer mentorship is very powerful. And don't underestimate your peer mentors. Another thing that people asked for is, ooh, how do I kind of set those expectations without coming across as really, really, intrusive, type A, rigid. So some programs like Vanderbilt, they actually have these structured mentor-mentee working agreements or contracts. The one from Vanderbilt is amazing. It's also inexplicably 14 pages long. And so one of the things that we're working on is creating a briefer version that is more high yield, more UCSF again, for a mentor-mentee contract that says, again, how often should we be meeting? What's the modality? Who sets the agenda? What's the best communication preference? Who do we talk to if there's a conflict? Just saying that explicitly up front can help a lot. Another intervention that we've been doing a lot is, again, to kind of allay some of the stressors about advancement and promotion is just demystifying the black box. Once many of you have sat on these committees, the advancement and promotion committees, the first time I sat on those committees, my mind was blown. There's a lot of hidden curriculum, and there's a lot that we can make explicit to our faculty and trainees about advancement and promotion process. So we've been doing a lot of educational sessions about advancement and promotion, optimizing your CV. We did this session as part of National Mentorship Month. If you missed it, we did it again in Doctor's Day. If you still missed it, we're doing it for Warm Hearts again tomorrow at Mission Bay. And there are recordings and slides openly available. Similarly, back in 2020, we had done, with the help of Bob, Dr. Sarkar, Dr. Pope, many other colleagues, we did these advancement and promotions town halls to, again, demystify the process. Right now, it's another time of anxiety and uncertainty. We're going to actually reboot these promotion town halls for the current era this fall. So this fall, look out for those. We'll have ones for physician scientists and clinician educators, demystifying the advancement and promotion process, people sharing best practices as well. Community building is something that's, again, important now more than ever. Here's a great picture from our Women in Leadership Development faculty trainee mixer that we had. And last month, we also had this event called Finding Your Why, or the concept of Ikigai, where you find out, what do I want to do with my life? What does the world need? How can I get paid for the awesome stuff that I want to do? And we did some values-based reflective exercise with that construct, which targeted both trainees and faculty. What about AI, you may ask? I am an early adopter of AI, and I do believe that it can help solve problems where, kind of brute force searching does not help. And if you've looked at UCSF profiles, you'll see that the search function is, it's not as bad as Bing, but it's not very functional. And so I'm working with one of our talented hospital medicine faculty, Dr. Greg Au, to build out an AI mentor match where they say, hey, I want a mentor in health equity and HEMONC. If you look at that right now on Google, ChatGPT, UCSF profiles, it's hard to find people who match that description. So we're doing kind of the brutal back end, which is helping with mentor-mentee gold standard validation to say, how do you actually draw from many sources of information that's not just the UCSF profiles website to enable a better search function for mentor-mentee matches? And people like Dr. Brian Schwartz have pushed us to say, hey, how do you make sure that this tool isn't, it doesn't become kind of a bot generating 100 mass emails saying, here's my CV, I would like to work with you. How do you actually ensure high quality mentor-mentee interactions? How do you make sure that there's some assessment of mentors' bandwidth? How do you kind of really fully intentionally explore that tool to make sure that it's used properly and not kind of you build it and no one comes? Last but not least, I think the thing that we're most proud of that we're working on for this fall is called the UCSF Department of Medicine Mentorship Incubator. So I shared with you a little bit about the Colorado launch team, how they kind of help people come in as a cohort, assign them structured mentors. And I really wanted to have UCSF have a spin on this where we do some matching of mentors, we do some coaching, we do some education, and we do some community building, targeting specifically our new faculty entering UCSF. So we have a cohort now fully enrolled of 25 new faculty who are going to get structured mentorship committees, a quarterly curriculum that's based on a personalized needs assessment. They're going to have a little peer community within a larger community. It's not just the Colorado program that we ripped from their books, but it actually has UCSF specific elements. And it's people who are hired starting this summer and fall during these turbulent times. We have this matrix mentorship approach, so it doesn't kind of quote compete with existing mentorship efforts in the divisions. And we have some one-on-one coaching sessions with SMART goals. Our pilot divisions are rheum at all 3 sites, hem-onc at all 3 sites, home critical care at all 3 sites, ID, HIV, global health at all 3 sites. And we were happy to take folks off some of the waitlisted divisions at hospital medicine at the general and UCF nephrology. And if you're saying, hey, wait, I'm not early career, I'm not in the first year, I'm on one of the divisions that I don't see represented in here, fear not. All of the materials are going to be available on the website, freely available, as if it's a crossover trial. What about recognizing those super mentors? Many of you know that this, the UCSF Senate Lifetime Award of Mentorship, that's amazing. And it's also only one person. And it often is someone who's a physician scientist only. And some senior clinician educator faculty have been nominated for 8 years in a row and have never gotten it. So we are going to do some new Department of Medicine specific awards for mentorship for emerging mentors, recognizing that some people are mentoring a lot, even at the assistant professor level, for mid-career mentors and lifetime mentorship. And there's going to be awards for both physician scientist and clinician educator pathways. This is kind of that summary graphic where I hope I showed you that all these interventions help build community, help with education, help publicize existing interventions, help with matching, coaching, advancement, and recognition. In my last couple of minutes, I'm going to share that thought-provoking part to just wake everyone up. So this is the slide deemed inaccurate by Dr. Brian Schwartz because Yoda and baby Yoda never were in the same timeline. But putting that aside, I hope I've made it clear that we need to look beyond the mentorship dyads, that you can't put all your eggs in one mentor basket. You have to diversify your mentorship network. And then Dr. Murad said, wouldn't it be great if there was a person in charge of mentorship at each division? And Dr. Feldman had actually thought of that years earlier and instituted UCSF mentorship facilitators. So each division is supposed to have mentorship facilitators that help focus on mentoring. Here are the mentorship facilitators for UCSF Health site. So find your division, find your person. They know who they are. We had a great meeting of the mentorship facilitators across divisions a couple of weeks ago where we shared best practices and did some education. And some people said, oh, I'm going to do more. I'm going to take some of those ideas and do more. Here's the list for ZSFG of the mentorship facilitators. And every single person at the VA has one mentorship facilitator, Dr. Josue Zapata. So lucky him. In his role, he's also the mentorship facilitator for the VA faculty. As I mentioned, peer mentorship is also incredibly important. One of my great peer mentors, Dr. Emily Abdler at Michigan, had written this article about the importance of peer mentorship and how to make peer mentorship work for you. So it's not just about being someone's friend or being someone's, surrogate therapist, though those are super important as well. But making progress together and using your peer mentors as sounding boards as well as accountability partners is actually incredibly helpful and will help lots of peer mentorship success beget success. I talked a little bit about mentorship and well-being and how the surveys showed us how mentorship drives well-being and vice versa. At the same time, I acknowledge, and many of you know this very well, that our Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, that when we have access to, do our jobs safely, feel safe, feel included, have spaces for, dare I say, parking, feel equipped to do our jobs, have a salary that's equitable and fair. People often need those structural basic drivers of well-being before they can engage in those larger mentorship kind of conversations or asks of others. So well-being and mentorship are incredibly important drivers of each other. And we need to also make sure all of our trainees, all of our faculty have those Maslow's hierarchy of human needs met first, in addition to helping them with mentorship, coaching, professional development, and for on. Another thing that struck me as I've read more about mentorship, talked to people about mentorship, engaged in mentorship to others, is that so many people view mentorship as service. Mentorship is a service activity. It's often viewed as thankless, it's unpaid, it's uncompensated. And how do we incentivize or promote mentorship creatively without making it like, if you put this mentorship activity on your CV, then you get X mentorship points? We don't want to make it, Duolingo style gamification of mentorship, but how do you actually incentivize mentorship thoughtfully, not create unintended consequences? Bob always says his analogy of, the late fee for kindergarten or childcare, that if there's a late fee for every minute you're late in childcare pickup, it actually does not drive down your childcare pickup late rates. That actually people think, oh, if it's only $5 if I'm 5 minutes late, I can be a little bit late. So you have to always think about unintended consequences of any intervention that you put in and be really thoughtful about carrots and sticks. One study that is UCSF specific that was done by the Faculty Senate is this faculty time use study. And there was a whole task force at UCSF, the Faculty Time Use Task Force. And what they found was that women and folks who were underrepresented in medicine disproportionately did service activities, and they included mentorship as one of those service activities. So I just also am asking all of us to be mindful of how do we incentivize and promote mentorship without further exacerbating that toll on our women and underrepresented medicine colleagues. On a national level, one interesting thing to note, and this is an article from Dr. Reshma Jagsi, who's a leading gender equity researcher. She has done this study on gender and mentorship. And one thing that they found is this: women reported fewer instances of sponsorship for high-profile public opportunities, and men endorsed greater concern surrounding mentoring someone of a different sex. We need to, in academic medicine, think about how to compensate mentorship, address men's concerns surrounding mentoring women by encouraging it and providing clear guidelines. This is kind of an elephant in the room. A lot of people don't talk about this, but when you talk to people one-on-one, there are many horror stories of, being a tormentor, mentorship abuse. And now there's also perhaps, this study shows that some people have fear around mentoring across genders. So again, it may be uncomfortable to talk about, but we have literature that supports this. And I think we need to really help think about how to encourage and improve mentorship by everyone. The other thing that I'll point out is that a lot of times when we think about development, people development, faculty development, resident development, we think about remediation. We think about people who need extra support. We think about the person who's struggling. And sometimes we ignore our kind of, quote, high performers. So how do you make sure that your trainees who are superstars or your faculty who are amazing are thriving, are getting their flowers, are not being ignored? Because we don't want them to leave either. One of the rules in medical education psychology is this 2 sigma rule by Bloom. And what that shares is that anyone, any of us, wherever we are on the bell curve of whatever metric you say, any individual person can improve with coaching and mentorship. And so it's really our duty to say, hey, we want to help everyone across the continuum to succeed and to develop. How are we going to do this? I've shared a little bit about our plan for today. I have a 5-year timeline that's ambitious, but we're going to get done. It's only been about 8 months and we've already gotten a lot done. And so I hope that in this, expansive hour, I've shared some evidence-based practices for mentorship, compared and contrasted mentorship approaches at UCSF and beyond, talked about best practices, and raised some thought-provoking questions for you all. And again, I'll end with, you all thought about your mentors. Let's think about how can we give back to our mentorship community? How can we give back to our trainees, our early career faculty, especially in this time? And I couldn't end this talk without a thank you to my mentors. I'm very thankful for the amazing mentorship in my division, in this department, and so excited to collaborate and learn from all of you. Here are some pictures of some peer mentors, some med-ed mentors, some research mentors, and some staff mentors. I've learned a lot from Sarah Wingate in the back, who's an amazing staff partner to me, and I've learned a lot from her in this journey. If you really want to nerd out, I have a 27-page strategic plan on mentorship that will also be posted on the website coming soon. And in the meantime, you know where to find me. I'm at Parnassus on the 10th floor. Send me your questions, feedback, suggestions. I'm really excited to make this place even better with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Lekshmi. That was fabulous. What should your AI bot cue on? Should it find people who have similar career interests? Should it find people who have similar backgrounds or went to your medical school? Or what do we know about what the right match is? And I'm sure there's sort of personal style differences that are very big and may transcend whether we're both pulmonologists or both researchers. So how do you think about the dimensions of matching?
This is a great question. And it gets to the fact that, again, mentorship is not like Hinge or Bumble or any of these apps where you can give some specified metrics and can swipe until you find your dream mentor match, right? So the goal, as I hope I've shared, is you can't find one person A. So the goal is to give you kind of a couple of people who fit your interests. In the established research, they find that there's not actually best practices for matching around, for example, your pedigree. It might be a cool one sentence, oh, you went to Hopkins, I went to Hopkins, but that often doesn't give much more to it. When people are seeking an identity match, if people self-identify to say, hey, I actually would like a mentor who's a parent, or I would like a mentor who's underrepresented in medicine, then that makes sense to have one of the mentors in the career mentor network share an identity that that person has asked for. And that we also shouldn't assume that people necessarily want to match with someone with their identity necessarily. The other thing about interests is an interesting one. In our gold standard validation for the AI, we found that, again, if you just look at keywords on people's profiles, it's necessary but not sufficient. So for example, if you look at global health, a global health mentor who does work in Sri Lanka and one who does work in Uganda, they may still both be good mentors, even if your country that you're interested in doing research in is not necessarily a match for that country. And practically, experientially, if you want to do work in Uganda, it's going to benefit you to specifically pair with someone who's done work in that country. So the take-home message is you need to match on multiple layers, multiple people. Identity-based mentorship is important if people ask for it, but not necessarily proactively. And that we have to go way beyond keywords for matching.
I will throw it open to others. Questions, comments? Yeah, let me get you a mic.
Brian Schwartz, I'm the Associate Chair for Education in the ID Division. Thank you for an awesome talk and all the great work that you've done so far. I'm excited to see what happens over the coming years. In relation to the AI, in some of the other work I've done, I've started seeing kind of LLMs that act as coaches or as themselves, like a mentor in a pocket or a coach in a pocket. And I was wondering if you've seen anything like that, or could you imagine that everybody here, in addition to their assigned mentors, have a DOM mentor on their phone?
I love this question. And thank you again for being an amazing mentor to me. So there are examples of places that do this well for specific tasks. So for example, the Ohio State College of Medicine, they have a whole office in their medical school that's devoted to creation of this kind of MedEd map mentor AI bot just for med students in the preclinical years. So it's kind of helps them take a history. Are you asking the right questions? Can you generate multiple choice questions that will help me study for the step? And they found that it's really helpful as a tutor for those specific things. I'm also holding in the same breath that I say that the evidence that, for example, in outside of medical education, that in the college world, in math, people who've done lots of med-ed educational AI bots to help practice for a math test, when they take the math test, they actually do a little bit worse than the people who studied without the bot. So I'm holding both of those thoughts simultaneously. At the same time, we do have some real world experience, which is what I call don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. For example, many of you have used in the room the Ginger app, great free coaching app for mental health. However, the person who's struggling knows that when you're struggling, a simple app, mental health wellness bot like Ginger is helpful, but not sufficient. that people need to actually find that human to get dedicated one-on-one mental health support. So I imagine the DOM mentorship AI matching tool to be sort of like that. It's a little bit of a tool to help you get to the next level, but it's never going to replace your mentorship networks, but can be a helpful adjunct. On the staff side, people like Sarah and Maria Novalera have done a lot of work, and Dr. Murad have done a lot of work in building a interface called Dominic, which is basically an AI chatbot to interrogate UCSF's policies and procedures. So I think there's a lot of great places where we can use AI LLM bots to interrogate existing databases and data cores and organize that information, but it doesn't replace that human element of the provide psychosocial support and career advancement like NAM asks us to.
Thank you for a fabulous talk. Love hearing all the effort that you've put into this idea of mentorship and people development. I was really curious. I was really intrigued by your slide that shows the interaction between well-being and mentorship, because in everything I've read about mentorship, it requires so much of the mentee to make the relationship work. And sometimes if the well-being needs aren't met for the mentee, it's going to be really hard for them to engage in that relationship. And so I'm curious how you envision that working practically as people enter into mentor-mentee relationships. And if there's a sense that well-being needs are not being met, how do we integrate that? Is that a separate person? Does their mentor take that on? I'd love your thoughts on that.
Such a good question. One thing that I've found that many both mentors and mentees have shared with me is this feeling of disappointment when their research or career mentor is not addressing their well-being as they had hoped. And that I've seen that time and time again of like, oh, my mentor is so great, but they don't understand this thing that I'm going through and they're not helping me, or I'm not feeling good when I talk to them because they're only talking about this. That again underscores to me the importance of having multiple mentors in different domains. That sometimes I can talk with Dr. Bond about her conferences that she's presenting at, and sometimes I can talk with Dr. Bond about what is it like with a mom of 2 toddlers. And sometimes I may be in one space more than I am in the other space, and recognizing that each mentee and myself will need different people sometimes for different conversations like that. And so, I may not be talking with Dr. Wachter about the challenges of folding laundry with 2 toddlers running amok. But there are other great things.
If you want.
But there are other great things that I do talk to him about. And so I think building out your mentor network with people who you can talk about different aspects of your personal and professional well-being is critical. I also think, again, mental health support is essential. And that, again, now more than ever in this time, when people are struggling, the first question that a mentor should have if someone's struggling is not like, why didn't you get this paper to me? But like, hey, I've noticed that this is late. What's going on? Is there anything else I can do to support you? And again, for mentors, it might be scary to ask that, but actually you just have to ask. You don't necessarily have to solve your mentee's well-being issue, but you do have to ask to make sure that they're getting that support. I hope that makes sense.
Let me ask the last question, and it gets a little bit at this issue of critiques. My wife and I somehow are able to edit each other and not kill each other. I remember asking Atul Gawande the question once about his relationship with his wife, and he said, we decided early on that she could either be my booster or my editor, but not both. So can you be a mentor to someone and be critiquing them and providing them corrective feedback, or is that something you need to be particularly careful about in order to preserve the relationship? Because I think that comes up a lot.
It comes up a lot. And I would actually argue that honest, thoughtful feedback is that gift that everyone is seeking. And that if you have that clear communication expectation up front, that definitely makes it go a long way. So if you say up front to your mentee, I'm going to send this slide deck or this paper back to you, and it's going to be full of red. Red is love. It's because I care about this piece of work and getting it better that I'm editing it at such a detailed level. If you don't set that pre-brief, that little mentorship pre-brief, then that person may receive that. And depending on the person, they might be like, okay, great, accept all these edits. Or they might be like, oh my God, he hates me. This is the worst document I've ever written. So that 1 minute pre-brief is essential. And then the mentees can't grow without honest and thoughtful feedback. And that's what we see in our trainee survey, that Dr. Schwartz and Dr. O'Brien have thoughtfully put together, is that trainees and faculty are craving thoughtful, actionable feedback. And that little pre-brief goes a long way.
Great. Lakshmi, thank you for a terrific talk. Thank you for the work you're doing to make us better.